Alright, well. It might take a second for some of the people to join because I did it wrong. I goofed up my stuff. That's pretty loud, huh? Why is that so loud? It's not supposed to be that loud. I started the stream on the wrong thing for a little bit. A bunch of people were watching the wrong YouTube video. So it might take a second for them to migrate over.
Today will be my lucky day.
So last week, one of the things we were talking about was internal monologues and NPCs and this sort of memes surrounding that. How's it going? Xurious, second hat. Good to see you. So if anyone can find... Where's my game? Why is my game not showing up? Come on, game. Where is this? Uh-oh. Wait a second here. How about now? Hey! Alright. Last week we were talking about NPCs, internal monologues, that kind of stuff. If anyone can find... Like, I've been looking for it. If anyone can find... There's a story. I think it's on Reddit. Or it was. You know? Maybe it got deleted or something. It was, I believe, a woman, but it was a person on Reddit saying that they... Yeah, off to a good start. Exactly, Schmerling. It was a person saying, like, oh, I've never had an internal monologue, but now when all these people started to talk about it, I've tried it. And I've been doing it for a couple months or a couple years or whatever, right? It's this story of a person purposefully creating an internal monologue within themselves. So, I'm not telling you to stop the stream to look for that, but I cannot find it. Does anyone recall what I'm talking about? And can anyone find it? Because if you can, I'd really like to bring that up and talk about it on stream. Also, Trovo looks like it might be broken. That being said, not many people watched me on Trovo. So, you know. Ugh, gosh. Whatever, man. Whoops. No, let's do, So Ando says he saw a screenshot of that somewhere. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have too, but I cannot find it. So if anyone can find that, I'd really like to bring it up on stream and talk about it.
Chariot awaits, gentlemen. Move out.
Second hat says, kind of related to DRG. He's thinking about buying some noble metals, precious metals, silver and gold. I mean, at the end of the day, you can decide what you want to do. I mean, if it's something like you're thinking about obtaining... Okay, obviously, I can't give you, like, legally, like, financial advice, but, like, what I have done, or what I have thought about for myself, is that if you are looking to do something short-term, right, you could always look at something like an ETF, or even a mining stock, right? If you're looking at something long-term, you could take physical possession of silver and gold, or mining stocks. Mining stocks are a pretty decent way to get into precious metals without holding a metal, right? Because if gold sort of goes up in value, at least compared to inflating currencies, then people who mine gold are in a good position. Their companies, their stock, it's like... I think if you were to plot the price of gold and the value of mining stocks next to each other, they wouldn't be identical curves, but, you know, often they would be related. Oh man, Hooli Hoarder. I mean, it's a good thing, right? It's a bonus, but one of those things where, you know, now I gotta go and try and do it solo. A lot of times it's pretty difficult to successfully get a hoarder down all the way. Oh my gosh. Jeez. Oh. Almost got me, that grabber. Get out of here, you guys. Okay, I'll get down. Ooh,
Our
Stabbervine.
picked up a massive deposit of a quark.
Hello, Stabbervine.
In alongside our heavily armed lifters to get as many out as possible. We're picking up
Whoa!
extreme biosigns in the area, so keep it snappy.
And it's dead.
Quarks can be extracted from the walls. Search for a blue shimmering light. Get it done, team.
Oh, there was another Stabbervine here. That's what they were shooting at constantly. I got killed. I was playing this game yesterday. See these tumbleweeds? If you so you saw me just try and jump on it, and it went flying. But sometimes when you land on it, you'll go flying instead of it going flying. And I joined someone's game, and the moment I joined, I like landed on a tumbleweed, got launched across the map, and just died right away. Hey, KNat. Good to see you. Yeah, my stream got kind of goofed up here at the beginning, so a bunch of people kind of got lost. They were trying to watch, goofed up all the stuff, and it created a second instance of the stream sort of deal on YouTube. That's where most people are watching now. KNet is YouTube rather than DLive. Also, like, so I restream, right, to DLive and everything. But I'm having trouble actually logging into DLive just in the browser. So that I might not be able to, if they still have all the same stuff on DLive, like the chest. But don't send me any lemons. Because I can't log in right now. Anybody. No one send lemons. I do have the Cash App for people who have asked. Oh, let's see here. Oop, finally. Get rid of the menace. Now I'm not sure where that hoarder went. See if I can go up this way. So, I would really like if we can find that thing. I mean, I might even try searching it up here, too, in a little bit. Oh, I thought there was a little bit of a ledge there. If we can't find that story, I still have some other things we can take a look at during the stream today. Wow, it really sent it everywhere. Let's see here. Oh, so Second Hat said he's been investing in flying companies, so airlines, hoping that they would experience somewhat of a bounce back after the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly an idea. As long as, I mean, at the end of the day, we got to keep in mind that, like, the beginning and end of the pandemic for something like an airline is largely defined by the regulations and the regulators, right? Like, that's when their pandemic begins and ends. It's not like based off of illness, right? I mean, you can say that the regulators' actions are based off of illness, but the point is it's not like a direct relationship. It's an indirect relationship. So if you have regulators that are especially cautious, or, you know, or regulators who are biased and view the airline industries as polluters, and therefore delays in ending the pandemic from a regulatory standpoint. Get out of here, acid spitter. Woo! Uh-oh. Well. Oh, that might be interesting, Schmerling. Schmerling says he found a post, someone saying they didn't have one until they had a traumatic head injury and had to get a spinal tap. And then they developed an internal monologue after that. That is interesting. Yeah, if you can link that, I'd be interested in that. But I also want to find the one of... Yeah, I mean, that would be fine. All right, you pick that up, Bosco.
Help me carry this.
Go down here.
Recharging.
Could make it. Up, 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 up.
Took out a loot bug.
Oh, come on. I'm stuck on the Stabbervine things. Well, not Stabbervines, the thorns.
Come here. Down the hatch.
Ando says brain damage fixed his brain. Yeah, that's... I mean, it's one of those things where, like, when you have brain problems, you know, sometimes... I mean, it's just it's a highly complex environment, and even things you think are just straight harmful, like a brain injury, I don't know. I mean, it could potentially jostle things around in just the right way to improve something. I need more nitra. Oh, I need nitra quickly. Otherwise, this game's going to come to an end. Second Hat says he remembers a story of a guy developing math talent after a head injury. Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear, like, some expert opinion on, like, how that happened or why. Okay, that was a mistake. That blew my last ammo for my gun there. Okay, I need... What do I need? 46 nitra? There's 24. Oh, crap.
Help me with the minerals here.
One of those things. I can come up here. Is that nitra up there? No, it's not. This is the one thing about the biome for me. So this biome is very green. I'm colorblind. Sometimes I can't find nitra that well here. Oh my god, the hoarder is coming right after me. Alright, Bosco. That's fine. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, that's the hoarder right there. I don't know what that color was. Oh, yeah, Schmerling points out trephining. So we have evidence, right? We find the people, we find the bodies, right? In antiquity / prehistory, right? You have these cultures that are poking a hole in someone's head, right? I mean, like,
The swarm is upon you.
beating a hole in someone's head. I'm not exactly sure if we know. Like, have we ever found a tool that we suspect has been used in the trephining? I don't know. I only know, like, vaguely the practice, but not. I don't know. Not any specifics about it. Oh my god. Yeah, I suppose it is a horde or whatever. I might just go down here and let Bosco pick me up. Okay. I'm in a real rough spot here. I might lose. Just because I never gathered enough nitra, ultimately. Go down twice here. Taking a bunch of these out. Oh yeah, because I just lost my ammo for my grills, which is pretty important. I'm out of ammo on everything, basically. Other than that... Okay, let's run around for a second here. If there's some nitra above me... Okay, that was a mistake. But, yeah, trephining. So you got, like, these cultures... We find these people that had, like, a hole in their head. And I think sometimes they even repaired the hole, right? They repaired the hole that they put in their tribesman's head, right? So why were these cultures putting a hole in someone's head, you know? And I only remember this once from school, where the teacher sort of asked us to come up with potential reasons why you would put a hole in someone's head. You know, and we came up with, like, things like, I mean, could just be punishment. Someone's acting poorly, put a hole in their head. But it also could have some positive effects. I mean, imagine if someone's poor actions or behavior or whatever was ultimately due to a brain tumor, or sort of like anything that would cause sort of an expansion of brain tissue in the head. Oh, there's nitra up there. Because that's one of the things you see is, you know, if someone has an expansion of brain tissue, the pressure can lead to problems. And potentially relieving that pressure could fix it. Even if that means putting a hole in their head in prehistory. God forbid they get like a brain infection. I mean, then they're dead for sure, but if they're already behaving in a way where you might have to kill them if they continue, then it might be worth doing. Okay, so I need 14 nitra? Come on. Oop, oop, oop. How much do I have? What do I have here? 13. Okay. I might be able to live. Uh-oh. Alright. I might actually win. I can't hardly believe it, but I might win here. I have 58 cryo ammo, 0, 0, 0, and 3 axes. And very low on health. And now, I'm good. Look at that. Joe Mama says, I want to pour milk in my trephining hole like the Star Wars Holiday Special guy. That's... I've never seen that, and it sounds incredibly disturbing. So, did anyone have the link to that one thing you were talking about? You were talking about, a link to, like, a Reddit post where a guy got an internal monologue after a brain injury?
Objective completed. Launch controls are active and
Let's get the hell out of here. I don't care about the Huli Hoarder.
Contact. Lock and load.
Okay, maybe I should have waited, since this is a swarm right now, but, it's gonna be a rough 2 minutes. We do need to get rid of some of these bots, though. My god. Okay, let me... Oh, god. Okay, wait. If I pause now, because I can pause since I'm just on one player. Okay, maybe I should have waited. Whoop, whoop, whoop. This is a... Jeez. Click on my own stream. Okay. Can you do me a favor, Ando? I just made you a moderator. you know, you do see the bots, you know, it's like you're not obligated to show up to every stream now or anything and help me. But if you are on the stream and you're watching and you see some of those bots spamming their little URLs or whatever they're doing, you could just ban them or whatever. Okay, give me a second. Okay. I'm really shocked I'm gonna live this one. I mean, probably gonna live this one. Where the hell is it? Oh my god, it's so far away. Stupid glyphid menace. It's very much fitting up to its namesake. Oh. Alright. Well, maybe the comment isn't showing up for me on my streaming thing, but I'll look in a second. I also have some other screenshots to look at here. I'm shocked I lived this. I was incredibly close to losing this one. Oh no. I want to look at my map, but the stupid glyphid menace.
Hang in there.
Okay. Okay, it's over that way. Through the drop pod. Right through the wall. Jump, jump, jump. Oh! I didn't want to overheat.
Clock is ticking. All up to you, team. Drop pod departing in T-minus 3 minutes.
Come on, you. What is happening with the drills? Jeez. Oh! Okay, just do this.
That's one for the books. Retrieving escape pod.
We are unbreakable. Rock and roll. Alright. Do you remember when the NPC meme was still sort of new and everyone was talking about it? Internal monologue NPC meme. So everyone was talking about the NPC meme and the internal monologue, the idea that, oh my gosh, did you know some people don't have internal monologues? They're NPCs. And this took like somewhat of a political sort of twist online because everything does, right? And you had people saying, what's more scary than the inherent dehumanization of the NPC meme is the alt-right demonizing the left for lacking an internal monologue, as if the fact that we do not hear voices in our heads telling us what to do / think is somehow a negative, undesirable characteristic. And of course, what you'll notice there is, like, I mean, that's just, I mean, he's just going to dehumanize the other group as evil. But also, it is funny. NPC bros bragging about their internal monologues, not realizing it makes them look crazy. Or it makes them look like crazy people. My sides. The premise of the NPC insult is that liberals lack internal monologue. Oh, is that liberals lack internal monologue? Someone tell them that you're not supposed to hear voices in your head. Is y'all internal monologue what told y'all to vote Trump too? Not an NPC can think without hearing dismembered voices. Thank you. That's why I choose to resist. Resist. We gotta resist. They're part of the resistance. Oh, man. Hello, Gold Schnoz. Gold is on D Live. Okay, let me take a look here. Yeah, no. Okay. Schmerling, you said you found a post, someone saying they didn't have a internal monologue until they had a traumatic brain injury. Can you link that? Or let me see here. Well. Ando says he's confusing with schizophrenia. Yeah. Like, they're certainly misunderstanding the difference between an internal monologue and, like, it's somebody else's voice, right? Like, they're struggling to know the difference between your own voice and someone else's voice. And the whole internal monologue thing does somewhat... I mean, like... So... You see a bunch of videos when people talking about it saying people don't have an internal monologue, and I'm still somewhat skeptical to how many people wouldn't have an internal monologue, because it seems somewhat unlikely given what we know about typical people who do have an internal monologue, right? Like, if you speak and we look at your brain, we will see certain parts of the brain activate, and when you think just to yourself, we'll see those same parts of the brain activate. So that's interesting that thinking to yourself hits the same parts as speaking out loud, but also it tends to, like, there's an inhibition system, a system to inhibit that's being activated. And we can see micro movements around people's mouths when they're thinking to themselves. Meaning, when most people think to themselves, they are essentially engaging the mechanism of speaking, but inhibiting some of the muscles related to face and vocal cords and that stuff, right? So, given that that's the case, how many people would you actually expect to have an internal monologue? And if they do, if there are people without an internal monologue, is it because that their inhibition system is so undeveloped that they can't fully do that, right? They either talk to themselves or they don't think at all. I would expect a certain amount of, like, impulsiveness in those people if we were to measure that. We would see that they would maybe have higher rates of STDs. They would have other inhibition problems, I would assume, right? That's just my, yeah. Second Hat says, perhaps they're just so accustomed to their inner voices that they don't notice it. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, at least with some of these people. I'm not saying everybody, but some of these people, it seems like they don't quite understand what's happening to them. Schmerling says, yeah, like a fish in water. Exactly. So, like, yeah, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Schmerling says, here's an image of the comment. Okay, I gotta... But maybe it's just being, censored, Merlin. Because I see you saying, here's an image of the comment, and I don't see you posting a link in that comment. I don't see you posting a link before or after that. And I have it... I have it on live chat rather than top chat. So... yeah. This... So I assume it's just sort of a YouTube censorship thing. Okay, let me see if I can search it up right here. Internal, because this would be an interesting thing to hear. Internal monologue, spinal tap, right? You said it's spinal tap? You got a brain injury and a spinal tap, and that's what allowed him to have an internal monologue? If you tell me the exact words that make up the Reddit headline post, that might be helpful. Because I'm not seeing it. Like if you just copy and paste, or like, because if you search, for anyone who doesn't know, let me just bring this up because sometimes there's a lot of stuff people don't know. Not your fault. Okay, let's click here. Click here. Okay. So there's a few things we can all know about search and browsers. First, left control, shift, and T opens up a previously closed tab, right? So here's the tab, I'll close it. Control, shift, T, bam, it's back. So if you ever accidentally close a tab, Control, shift, T to bring it back up. And it does it all in reverse order. So like, let's say you close 3 tabs. Well, the most recently closed tab comes up with Control, shift, T. The second most recently will come up if you do it twice in a row. And if you do it 3 times in a row, you'll get all 3 tabs back, right? So it's like an undo, redo for opening and closing tabs. Control, shift, T. So left control, left shift, and T. Second, if you want to search things, like if we could do internal monologue, whoops, Reddit. And most of this stuff will be talking about internal monologues, right? But you will also find we are finding stuff that contains internal and monologue, right? So they might say like, oh, here's the Korg monologue synthesizer that has an internal function to do X. Those things will also come up because they have both words. If you want to find the exact wording, you can always put it in quotes. This won't just search for a page that has internal and monologue on it. This will only search for pages that have internal monologue, right? The words together. And one of the things you can do. Oh. Schmerling. So if you could please just tell me the name of the Reddit post, I could search it. So, like, for example, if you ever have something like this, let's say you saw a screenshot of a Reddit post, you can almost always, whoops. Let's say you saw a screenshot of this Reddit post, and you wanted to find it, but you didn't have the URL, you can almost always sort of take a section of the title, put it in quotes, and find the exact, right, thing, right? So putting things in quotes help, and then the last thing you could do is minus. So minus Reddit. Now I don't get any results from Reddit anymore. So when you're searching, let's say you're searching internal monologue, and Korg monologue synthesizers keep coming up in your search. You can always type in, like, synth, minus synth. Like, show me all the stuff you were showing me, but take out the stuff that mentions synth or synthesizer or, you know. Oh, okay. Let's try it without quotes on this one. This is the one that comes from the guy with the spinal tap? He's in the comments or something? Okay. Today I told my mom I have no internal monologue, and she stared at me like I have 3 heads. Is having one common? I sincerely thought it was a fictional concept that Dexter made up. It shocks me beyond belief to know that people have one. How do you do it? I can't imagine doing it. So, is in the comments somewhere here you saying someone had a spinal tap? Okay. Dracula, here we go. I used to not have one, an internal monologue. I had an extremely bad concussion when I was in high school. I had some medical problems, and during the testing, we found out that I had increased pressure on my brain from a buildup of CSF from said concussion. I had a spinal tap to remove some of the CSF, which is like cranial something fluid, I'm pretty sure, and relieve the pressure. Now I have an internal monologue. My brain is empty now, in a good way, and I can think. I love to just be in my head and think. I've never been able to do this before. Okay. So Nero says it sounds like bait. It certainly could be. Oh, Joe Mama says cerebrospinal fluid. Okay. I knew it was some sort of fluid pressure. Well, and it doesn't strike me too much as bait. Just because of the same reason we were talking. So let me see if I can put this in paint or something. Do I have paint on here? Wank. Oh god, where's my cursor? What da 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 da. So like oh man. I would. So imagine like this circle. Or let's just call it speech. So this circle represents like your speech function, right? It represents your intellectual, but also your brain's ability to produce speech. And what, as far as I know, this could be inaccurate, but, you know, look it up. But I'm pretty sure what happens is when you're speaking, you're engaging this, obviously. And when you're thinking, what you're doing is you're engaging this, but then there's also inhibition. There's some inhibition section. There's some inhibition functions. Let's see here. Throat, face. Bum bum bum. So we have a line. So when you engage in speech, you're doing a bunch of things, including engaging your throat and your face and moving your vocal cords, your larynx, your mouth, tongue, right, all that. And to some degree, what we see when you're thinking to yourself is inhibition sort of comes in and breaks the connection between all of the speech functions and some of the stuff in your throat and face. Like, yeah. Oh god, more of those spam things. So what I would expect, if there is someone who can't have an internal monologue, they may have a problem ultimately with this inhibition functionality, right? And if you, like, they might be able to still work this part of their brain, but if they can't do this, they can't have an internal monologue. So they can maybe just speak to themselves if they don't find it embarrassing, or when they're in private or whatever. Just straight up speak to themselves, and that would function as the closest they can get to an internal monologue. But if relieving pressure in the brain allows this to start functioning again, I would think you could get an internal monologue back, right? All of a sudden, this would be able to cut this off, and you'd be able to engage this part of your brain without actually making noise, which is what we do. And one of the reasons why I think we know that is if you look at typical people, when they think to themselves, if you say, tell yourself a story in your mind, you know, we can still see little tiny, tiny, tiny micro movements in their face and their throat. So, like, the inhibition system isn't like a complete 100% total cutoff. It's like a 99.99% cutoff, and they're still making these little tiny involuntary twitches, you know, with their tongue and cheeks and throat that would indicate that they're engaging all the same functionality up here. I mean, the brain is a very complex thing. I mean, have you guys heard about blind sight? I mean, that's a really interesting one. You guys know that one? I really, let's see here. Let's see what anyone's got any good images here. Optic nerve. Point is, there's like, well, actually, let's talk about this. When you look at the nervous system, there's more decision points than just your brain, right? Ando says he talks to himself as well as thinks to himself, and I think most of us do, right? Maybe. One of the things you see is if people, like, put their hand on a hot stove, they will pull their hand away from the hot stove faster than you would expect if there was a burn signal being sent from the hand, up the arm, through the spine, up to the brain, and then a signal from the brain coming back down saying to pull your hand away, right? It's going faster than that. Because there's parts of the nervous system, like in the spine or wherever, it's something prior to the brain that says, hey, pull back. Like, there's decision-making that doesn't just happen in the one spot. That's quick, it's reactive, it works, but, oh, I was supposed to be playing engineer this whole time. That was my goal for the day, was to play engineer, and I started playing driller because I'm just so used to driller. I'm gonna switch to engineer before I do this deep dive. God. So, there's multiple places in the body where decisions can take place, and there's multiple places in the brain that deal with what we might consider one phenomena. In this case, I'm going to talk about sight, right? So, if I bring back paint... Okay. We need a clean slate. There is... eyes. So, eyeball. We think of what we think of as vision. Other visual. So I don't remember where these happen in the brain or what parts of the brain, right? But I do know this is a thing, right? You guys can look up blind sight after this. It's very interesting. So, like, you have your eyeballs. Then your eyeballs send information ultimately to the part of the brain. Well, it sends it to a couple places. One of the places is where you think of your vision, right? And how you see the world and blah, blah, blah. All the typical stuff, right? And then there's other visual processing that goes on too. Subconsciously. So here, what can happen is, let's say your eyes are shot. Well, then you're blind. And you're always blind, and you're blind to everything. None of this stuff matters at all. But if you get a brain injury that destroys your typical vision, the thing is, your eyes will still work in conjunction with other visual processing functions that happen in different places in your brain, and you will be able to use this sight information even though you have no vision. You will be blind, and you will still be informed by some sight information. And you might say, well, what the heck does that mean? And what does that actually translate to in terms of usefulness for the blind person? Okay. Let's type in blind sight. Let me see if I can find just a really okay. Boom, boom, boom. That was the wrong thing. Paint. No. We want... Okay. So, you're going to see they have a blind person, and he's walking down the hallway, and they've put things in the hallway, in his way, that would be a danger to a blind person. And their body, their brain, is urging them to negotiate around those things. When I said that there are other parts of the brain that deal with sight processing, these sort of sight data processing, there's a part of his brain that's saying, well, there's a danger kind of to this side. Please move around this. You know, that there's some stuff in our way. Like, it's a part of the brain that says, like, when we're in motion, we need to avoid things. Whoops. We need to avoid things. So that part of the brain identifies things that are potentially in the way, a hazard while moving, but it's not part of the normal vision, right? So this can be destroyed, you'll be blind, and you can still use your eyes to help you navigate the environment, because it's not just one part of the brain that does it. So this is, I think we normally see this type of blindness in someone who has like a traumatic brain injury, and this part of the brain is like destroyed. But I think there is maybe some sort of scenario where a buildup of pressure damages or destroys, or at least temporarily inhibits this part of the brain, but doesn't inhibit this part of the brain, which leads us back to what we were talking about with internal monologues. Someone could theoretically have their inhibition system sort of stopped or broken down, and if they regain that, they regain an internal monologue.
Some tunnel rats, barkeep.
Second Hat says, when he thinks in English, he says he feels a little bit disattached or detached to the thought. Yeah, I mean, it's probably sort of feels... Well, I mean... Yeah. I mean, I think we all sort of get what you mean, right? When you are thinking in your main language, you really are tying the ideas, the concepts, and the words together in a really sort of close-knit way, right? So... we do, boom... transparent selection. And this would be good to have American Krogan on to talk about this, since he speaks so many languages, but like, how do I want to do that? I probably just should have had them all on top of each other. Sort of, they're really tied together in a significant way, right? But then when you have to start using another language, there are times where that other language won't even have a word for that idea, right? And that's pretty critical, right? This is one of the reasons why when you look at some of the videos I've made about race, I will introduce some of these words, like anti-whiteism. And, of course, I have that video that I want to finish, which will help introduce the term and sort of make sense of the term numeric courage, right? If you don't have a word for a thing, it's pretty hard to work with the concept. Yeah. One of the things I've talked about with Krogan is sort of the idea that... oh, okay, I gotta switch to engineer. Is, you know, if you had been born in a different part of the world and we gave you a different language, you likely would not think the same ideas you do now. Right? I don't want to switch to different MS Paint programs. I mean, it's like, the only reason I use MS Paint is because it's super lightweight and it's super easy and there's not anything to it and I don't have to do anything, and I don't know. Now, okay. So we talk about that, the blue thing, right? People say, someone had said in chat a second ago about the Greeks not having the color blue. Schmerling says there was an African tribe that literally couldn't see the color blue until a group of researchers taught them how to. That seems kind of nonsense. I mean, just really, like, I don't think that, like, that seems like maybe the researchers found a thing, but I think the way we're describing it seems very inaccurate, right? I mean, do we all know how you see color? Right? I mean, okay. Maybe I won't bring it up right now. But,
Got no flares ready.
You have cones in your eyes, right? The reason you see the colors, well, oh gosh, the reason. I mean, you have the cones in your eyes that detect the different wavelengths of light, but then that all that visual data gets brought into your brain for processing to make the colors. Joe Mama says, did you think I was being sarcastic? In regards to what? Were you talking about the Greeks not seeing blue?
That's all you got, you slippery shit.
Okay, let's see here. Nero says, have you ever seen Possible Worlds? No. A movie that deals with the brain, love, and death, written by a mathematician. One of my favorite with no political agenda. I haven't seen that movie. I've seen, ultimately in my life, fairly few movies. Oh, God. Bitter. Oh, this is only a regular deep dive. That was quick. Schmerling says the Japanese don't differentiate between R and L sounds. Maybe this is similar to that for color. Well, I mean, the only difference is, like, when it comes to phonemes and language, I mean, that's something you're creating and performing, right? Not just recognizing it in the environment. And I mean, like, whoa. One of the things with the cones in the eyes that recognize, like, you have, I believe you have cones for blue, sort of red and green, right? More or less. I mean, that's not exactly how that works, but you have sort of blue, you have cones that mostly detect light within the wavelength of green, cones that detect light mostly within the wavelengths of red, and ones that mostly do it within blue, right? But they sort of spread out. They can kind of detect things in the neighborhood of. So, I mean, every group of humans, you know, assuming they're not colorblind, has all three of those cones in detecting roughly those wavelengths. So you have a tribe of people who have cones in their eyes that detect blue wavelengths of light. I mean, seems like we're getting into some weird stuff. But let's take a look at phonemes for a quick second. Is there just a chart of phonemes? Is there an easy way? No, that's not what I want. Yeah, something like that. Or what is it? Gosh. Phonemes. Let's just look at the Wikipedia page. I know you can't see my screen yet. Well, maybe I'm thinking of a different word. Oh no, I think that's phonemes. Okay. Where's my thing? So, at the end of the day, when it comes to phonemes, you know, the R and the L and all that stuff, I mean, different languages can just choose to engage in certain sound-making things. Sound-making, like, so, first you have where the sound is made, like nasal, plosive, those are your, like, your lips. Okay, here you go. Bilabial, plosive. Both your lips coming together. Then there's, like, the labial dental. Think your lower lip against your top tooth. That there's plosive, and then there's all sorts of other things. And, like, not all these, not every, there's so many potential combinations. We don't even use every theoretical potential combination. But Krogan is not here right now. It would be good to have him here for this conversation, since he knows more about this than I do. But, so for example, TH, the, and the, and the, that's the same sort of mouth sound. One's just voiced. One, you vibrate your vocal cords during there, but you don't do it at the beginning of that. Or, no, the thing, right? The TH sound is one of the most rare sounds in the world. Thing. This thing. Right? And when I say the most rare sounds, I mean, like, the vast majority of languages don't use that. I mean, there's certain clicks or whatever that's probably only done in one language or a couple. Like, there's more rare sounds. But this thing, that, the TH, the lip, the tongue against your upper teeth it's only in a small percentage of languages. I don't know, 10%, 15%, 5%, something like that. So, like, not having, oh, god dang, not having a sound is a lot different than not having a color, and being able to distinguish between two similar sounding sounds when it is largely just experience, right? So an R and an L, you know, someone pointed out the difficulty in figuring out the difference between R and L for some, like, Asian languages. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, they just don't use those sounds, so because they sound somewhat alike, or there are things that make them possible to confuse, and they have virtually no experience with it, that's what makes it, you know, that's what makes them not be able to differentiate it. Kind of similar to, you know, if you were to go to Africa, like, if you've never been to Africa and you don't know much about it, you might, at first, have a hard time telling a West African from an East African, or a Kenyan from a Somali. But if you were to spend enough time there, you would definitely start to notice all the differences between the various ethnies, right? You would notice, like, oh, well, you know, there is a genetic lineage to this group that isn't completely shared with that group, and you'd start to notice it. In the same way, like, you can tell the difference between Englishmen and Icelanders, but maybe if you've never seen either of them...
Mule is functional again.
Right?
Great work.
Like, if it's your first time meeting these people, you might have a hard time. So, Krogan has a channel on Odyssey. That's the best place to find his stuff. Let's see here. Ando says, Japanese just use R to stand in for L in loanwords. Okay, what's a loan word with L in it? Well, so you could say they use an R, but really they use their da. So flat comes furato, right? So, which is not an R. Like, they're not saying furato, right? They're saying furato, which is different than That's not an R or an L. Like, they don't have an R or an L in the same way we do. Right.
Where is it?
Which is why they would confuse the two, because they don't have either. Merlin says, if you overlay a video of someone making a G sound and audio of someone making a D sound, it seems like they're still making the G sound. Oh, so you mean for lip reading? Well, it's Well, I mean, the D sound, I mean, those are different sounds, and they do happen in different parts of your mouth, right? Cole says, did you study Japanese for a long time? Not really. So, I mean, I took Japanese growing up in school, and I've been there. You know, I've lived with families there for a little bit, and, you know, I'm not much of a studier, right? That's the thing. So, like, I speak a tiny bit of it, right? And I noticed some things, and I've consumed some of their media. One of the things I did before I went there the last time to try and study up was I watched a television show, right? I tried to, like, really watch a lot of their media. And one of the things I watched was Beautiful Rain. Just as a general, sort of my own philosophy, my own idea on language learning. You know, at the end of the day, as far as I understand, a lot of the research is simply showing that the more time you spend with a language is the most important thing in terms of learning a language, right? You just spend a lot of time doing it. A lot of time hearing it, a lot of time trying to speak it, because that's how everyone learns their first language, more or less. I mean, it's just around you all the time, you know? You're a baby and your mom talks to you in it, and you hear stories in it, you hear songs in it, and you hear this and that, and there's a television on it all the time. So it's just like constantly surrounding you, and you just pick it up because pattern recognition, human pattern recognition. So before I went there last time, I tried to have Japanese music and television shows and all sorts of things around me at all times and reduce my exposure to English stuff. And my own personal, I find, like, if you're not very experienced with a language, it's a lot more fun to have stuff that you still mostly understand, right? Like, if you don't understand anything, well, yes, you'll probably pick some things up over time. It's just a little bit more opaque and uninteresting if you don't understand any of it. So the reason I chose Beautiful Rain to watch, was simply because, so you can always watch, like, television shows made for babies, right? If you watch a television show made for babies, they'll be using the simplest language and you'll probably be able to get it the best, right? Well, the other option is to use shows made for adults, but some of the main characters are children, right? Because the children's dialogue, assuming it's written well, will never be as complex as an adult's dialogue, right? They'll always be more simple, because they're kids. They don't, you know, they're not writing a thesis here. And, second, when characters speak to the child main character, they will generally, like in real life, hopefully, adopt a more simple style of speech, right? I mean, just imagine your aunt speaking to a young child. I mean, they don't speak in the same way they speak to their husband. They say, well, you know, we're gonna do it this way, all right? I mean, they get the baby talk thing sometimes, but also just like simpler language, shorter sentences. So that's something to just think about. If you ever do want to pick up another language, picking up media that has children in it, even if it's not for children, can be sort of make it easier. How was Japan, says Cole. I mean, it was good. It's nice. It's a nice place. I made a video a while ago like, how good can society really get? And I kind of used Japan as an example of a highly homogenous, high trust, low crime, peaceful, safe society, right? Because it is. And I want that for us. Joe Mama says, learning Japanese, but only from period pieces and old novels, so you sound like you're from another time period entirely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely, if you are foreign to a land and you are learning the language from their media, you will, if you will watch, especially if you watch, like, just one type of media, you will be very heavily influenced by that type. I was in India. And I met this girl who basically, she had amazing English, right? Just fantastic English. Some of the best English I've ever heard in India. But, like, she had watched a lot of, like, Hannah Montana and Mean Girls kind of stuff. She had a very sort of strong impression, a sort of accent associated with, like, Hannah Montana, that style of young girl speech. It was, like, big time. It was really something. I mean, she sounded like a native English speaker, but from Hannah Montana. Second Hat says, English was my best subject in school, and I learned it through games and movies, since Denmark doesn't dub most of its shows unless they're for small kids. Yeah, definitely. So that's an interesting sort of... Joe Mama says, like a valley girl? Exactly. This was an Indian valley girl. She spoke English as a valley girl. And no one else in India that I met ever spoke like a valley girl. If you were on the phone with her, you wouldn't know she was Indian. You wouldn't know she was raised in India, speaking a native language there. You would think she's from the valley. It was quite... It left quite an impression on me, this valley girl. Valley girl accent. So Dodo says, you hear a lot of words borrowed from English, even for very basic things, items, and concepts that they should already have a word for, right? So, I think you got a couple things, right? On some level, English might be thought of as cool, right? And the people who can speak it are more sophisticated than the people who don't learn multiple languages, who just have their own thing. So I think you do sometimes get, like, English loanwords as a way to show off, and a way to, I don't know, just sort of spice things up. Like, why... Oh, God. You know, why just sell normal huku when you could sell clothes, right? Ooh. I mean, they have a word for clothes. Or huku. I mean, it's huku, right? Huku, right? I'm not exactly sure. I never quite get the FH sound difference thing that they do. So I think you get some sort of spicing things up by using English in those languages. Using loanwords even when they're not appropriate. There's also, there's a sort of... When you use a different language as loanwords, it's a little bit more distant. And that can be important for embarrassing things. So, for instance, obviously, Japanese has a word for, like, sexy, right? But sometimes saying their own word for sexy can feel a little strong. And by saying shakishi, saying the English version, can kind of distance yourself a little so it doesn't feel so aggressive and forceful and forward. It can feel a little bit more sort of spicy and fun and playful and not so sort of like, you know, just erotic. A little bit more playful. You know what I mean? By picking up some other language's word for a thing, you can, you know, eschew some of the old feelings. And there's also times where it's like, well, they definitely have a word for it. Or you think they definitely have a word for it, and then on like a very close analysis, you see there's like vague nuances they're trying to get around. It's like, that word is somewhat associated with somewhat, like it's like basically the same, and then you try using it, and there's like a slight different understanding, and so they end up using ours.
Time to earn your paycheck, team. Got a doozy of a
Like, I think there's a number of reasons loan words arise, right? Well, at the end of the day,
We have someone to get rocks in.
Jast, sushi refers to the vinegared rice, right? It's not all sushi has raw fish. Like, inari sushi, which is that fried, like, what is that thing? Oh, God. Like a bean curd, fried bean curd skin, inari sushi. Those are really good. California roll, of course, has no raw fish in it. That being said, that's an American thing, right? You know what would be most appropriate? Most of the time in the United States, when you order sashimi, it is just raw fish. Now, that's not always the case, and you can sashimi lots of things, and it's maybe more common in Japan, but for the most part, in the United States, sashimi is literally just pieces of raw fish. And they still call it sashimi. They could call it raw fish, right? Or, you know, I don't know. But there's lots of reasons why loanwords come about, and I think some of them you look at, and I think you could criticize them, being like, what is this? Like, is our own stuff not good enough for us? Why are we adopting their stuff? I think there's a genuine thing. I think sometimes when cultures fall into a sort of self-criticism that borders on self-hate, you will see them taking loanwords just to try and distance them from themselves, right? I think some of you are recognizing that when you see the loanwords come up, when you see people who portray themselves as more sophisticated for using someone else's language and someone else's words and someone else's cooking and someone else's this. On some level, some of these people are sort of trying to push them away from where they came from and trying to push themselves away from, like, the bad stuff. Like, your own people really aren't good enough, and they're not sophisticated, and they're not this, and they're not that, and, you know, everyone else is so much better than my own people. Like, I think some of you see that when you look at some borderline unnecessary loanwords.
It's a mystery.
Am I right?
How all these minerals fit inside.
I think some of you see what I see in that. And sometimes it's not the word that's making the distinction. It's the person, right? Like, the person. There's no one particular word that's like, oh, this is one of those kind of the words. It's the person who sort of like feels that they really want to reject their own sort of ancestry and upbringing and whatever. And like, so they're going to be totally gung-ho on embracing someone else's stuff just out of a sort of distaste for their own people and their own culture and their own this and that. And like, so if you were to say, well, they're doing it for that reason, if someone tries to argue with you over a specific word, like, no, this word's totally illegitimate, this word has a totally good reason for being a loan word, it's like, yeah, the word might, but the person is motivated by a sort of self-hate and exaggerated criticism towards their own people. Cole says, nationalists here have now Dutchified English words as a joke, but also make a point. Our language should enjoy priority. Yeah, I mean, that's I think that's fine and fun and playful, and it is interesting how this whole thing interfaces with, you know, well, all the things I was just talking about, ultimately.
One platform, ready to use.
Oh, yeah. Nero says, if someone says something like, say you, instead of voice actor, I cringe. Yeah, that's like, there's, I mean, is there a meaningful difference? Like, oh no, Seiyu is totally this other thing, not a voice actor. Like, that can be one of those things where someone's adopting the other language's term, possibly out of a sort of distaste for their own language, their own sort of things, or just like this sort of, almost, sometimes, a sort of weird, unnatural, or sort of obsessive obsession with the other culture.
Time to go deeper.
Piers says that he thinks he says Huns get the flamen waffen too often. Thoughts? I don't know, maybe you do. Not sure. Sark says he sees many people in high positions of society using a lot of English words instead of native ones where he's at. Like politicians, CEOs. Yeah, and I think there's a sort of intellectual and... I mean, it's signaling, right? It's some form of signaling. You know, like, oh, at my house we make pain perdu, which is French toast. In French. The French word for French toast. I mean, they have different, like, etymological meanings, right? Okay, we gotta kill this Wooly Hoarder. Let's do it! Oh,
So far, so good.
oh no. Okay. I don't think we're gonna be able to kill this. Okay. Remember what I said about killing that? I didn't mean it. That was a joke. I actually forgot about the hole in the ceiling. And I thought it was going to go into that tunnel, and apparently it's all blocked off. I mean, there's a signaling that comes with, like, I'm sophisticated, I'm using someone else's, I'm using some other language, and then that can definitely be tied in with a sort of native negativity towards that which is native and typical. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to signal then you're better than the norm in some way, like you're not like the normal people, I'm better than them, like you always have to find something more exotic to signal that, don't you? Like, to some degree. At least that's what would seem to make sense for most of these people, right? Like these politicians who are adopting English language for no particular reason. Like, there's no policy in any language. There's no policy likely in any country that would require the adoption of English talking points for them to successfully enact that policy. So it's not about the policy. It's about signaling what kind of person you are. I'm a real sophisticate. I speak multiple languages kind of deal. Now, Nero says it's common for the rulers to talk in another language. Roman emperors spoke Greek during the Middle Ages. The church spoke Latin. Russian tsars spoke French. USA rulers spoke... So you do sometimes see a ruling language pop up, right? But that, I think that's a... And, gosh. But that might not always be the exact same impulse as the adopting like little bits of a language to show what a sophisticate you are, because it's not even the ruling class who does that, right? It's not just the ruling class who will, you know, use a loan word when you have a perfectly good native word to show, you know, how big your balls are or whatever. Whatever. Well, and I think that's some of the thing. So, Krogan speaks multiple languages. He's been able to travel around, and he's been to Italy and these other countries, and he speaks multiple languages.
Make it go boom!
And some of our guys are so fed up with, like, the
I'm stuck!
help me, Bosco. Some of our guys are so fed up with the sort of pseudo-sophisticate signaling
Support rocket!
that people will show, right? This sort of like, oh, my own people, my own language, we're so bad and crap. I mean, they will signal it through the adoption of the use of a different language. And some of our guys are so fed up with that even Krogan, who's very much on board with we are good and there's nothing wrong with us for speaking our own language and all this stuff, if he even says anything in a different language, they'll sometimes jump on him, right? They'll be like mad at him for speaking Italian on stream or something. And kind of weird. At the end of the day, those are still European languages. Remember that. But he's on our side. You know, there's no part of Krogan, at least now, you know, now, look at his stuff. He's not speaking Italian or something because he hates us, right? Schmerling says, language is cringe. We must return to grunts and inarticulate screams.
So try not to leave the triangulation zone marked.
That's one option. Could you imagine watching a stream, though? Just grunting and screaming the whole time? You might not watch.
Team.
Sark says, I actively try to avoid foreign words nowadays, but it's creeped in my vocabulary. Yeah. Oh my... What? Get out of here. Oh my god, and of course I'm... Oh, and I'm out of grenades and everything. This is rough.
Do not leave the triangulation zone.
Oh, come on.
You need to stay inside the triangulation
Okay.
zone. Get
I'm
back in
staying...
there.
Oh, damn it.
Please get back into the triangulation zone. We're
Give me a second,
losing your signal.
guy. Ah, great. This is gonna mess up my whole...
Triangulation
Oh,
zone.
God.
We're losing your connection.
This is... So all this stuff on the ground now burns me, by the way. This is a regular deep dive. And all of a sudden, my life's at risk. Where is my... This volatile bugs thing is messing with me slightly. Can I get this finished and then...
Leave the triangulation
Oh yeah,
zone. We're
I
losing
forgot.
you.
I already used Iron Will.
You need to stay inside the triangulation zone. Get back in there.
Piers said he just watched Krogan play Detroit Become Human, and I was on there, the commentary on that. And Piers says it was an infuriatingly anti-white game. It is... It's one of those games, you know, it's the modern development studio, it's like... You have all these different ideas they want to present. You know, They want to present this group as victims, but also this group as not victims. This group is, you know, totally weak. And, you know, one of the things we saw with Detroit Become Human is, like, oh, gosh, when
Please get back into
oh,
the
God.
triangulation zone.
When,
Completely losing your signal. Return to the triangulation zone.
when,
You're losing your connection.
when, like, humans wanted to beat up on the androids or whatever, you know, the androids were weak and they couldn't fight back and they were being abused by these awful humans. It was just terrible, terrible. And then when it was time for them to fight back, you know, they were so much stronger and better than us, and humans are the real weak ones. And it's like, okay, well, only one of those can be true, right?
Well done, team.
Only one of those can make sense. They're either weaker than us, and, you know, we're using our superior whatever to be mean to them, or they're better than us. But instead they kind of went with both. Androids were depicted as early on, even when they got into physical confrontation, they often wouldn't be able to fight back. But later on, they just kicked our butts. Really, they're just better than us. Really. Mr. Gladius says, it's a shame Krogan can't speak other languages right now, because I'd like to hear his Italian. I myself study other language, so in a sense, I'm his Italic counterpart. I mean, he will hear him occasionally. He'll use Italian or French or Spanish on streams. There are times when, like, when we were doing Sunday Night Nonsense on his channel, we would read news stories from the week on Sunday and talk about them. And because he spoke, you know, French and Italian and Spanish, there were times where he was able to obtain news stories written in those languages that we weren't hearing in the English-speaking world. So he would read those. But again, people would be like, well, you're showing off, Krogan, you know. And again, as I was saying, I don't entirely
Sentry done. Go get him, boy.
I have some sympathy for the people who are saying that sort of thing. As I have said, like, there are definitely people who are significantly using other languages as a way to poo-poo their own. They want to use this other language as a way to sort of signal how sophisticated they are and rejecting that which is of your own people. And we do see it a little bit between European countries, right? People using English in non-English speaking countries. But a lot of times we'll see the entire English-speaking world sort of, or the entire European world sort of deferring to non-European languages as a way to look really sophisticated. Merlin says, do you look at equipment guides for this game? Not really. Just kind of do my own thing. And I feel like everything that I've picked that I can do has been fine in Hazard 5 and below. So, like, when people mod the game and they add a Hazard 6 and all this stuff, that's maybe where my builds are not as good as they need to be or something. But for the most part, I'm not playing that, right? Alright. Dreadnought Hive Guard. Cole says, Krogan's Bioshock series is his magnum opus so far. Touched on a few things I literally would have never found out about. I mean, have you seen the Visigoth series? I mean, that was quite a long one. I mean, at the end of the day, he's put a huge amount of time and effort into what he's done, right? And he's purchased a lot of stuff to make sure his computers could edit the videos to the quality that he needed them to be. I mean, well, Krogan, I mean, the amount of effort, time, and money that Krogan has put into us, our people, I mean, it's certainly more than most. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who imagine themselves as quite a fighter or quite an advocate for our people, and likely will never in their lifetimes make the contributions Krogan has. You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll make a few Twitter posts, but Krogan's a heck of a guy and a real asset to us. All right. So Nero says, one second, let me shoot this thing. Okay, there we go. Nero says, have been comparing things like discipline, creativity, and behavior amongst people. Krogan and you seem to be intelligent and on the same boat. Do you think you are so positive? Why do you think you're so positive and he's black building? I mean, let's come back to that. Nero says, an inner thing or a more stable environment. I'm guessing the difference is family and community. Well, I mean, it certainly doesn't help him that he's in the third world and is very far separate from his people. Right, so like yesterday, well, I mean, not everything's good in the hood for me all the time, but yesterday I was at a memorial, funeral, right, for someone in the family. And, you know, oh God, I don't know what I want to say in regards to this, or what I should say. Well, let's just keep it simple. You know, at my funeral, at my memorial yesterday, you know, I like where I come from, all right? I like where I come from. Whatever flaws someone could accuse us, I haven't, right? Whatever they might judge as being insufficient, I judge as being perfectly fine. And that's kind of my view about my whole race, right? Whatever someone might find lacking, I don't. As bad as you might think we are, I'm okay with that. I'll take us, even given whatever flaws we have. But to a large degree, Krogan's not even with us, right? Krogan's stuck out there. Piers says, the visual beauty of games like BioShock and Detroit Become Human make their anti-white message even more insidious and dangerous. Yes, that's totally true. We got a problem where, like, those types of games are very well funded, and for everything they lack in terms of healthy messaging, they at times can make up for it in flashy graphics and sometimes, but not always, fun mechanics, right? Sometimes they're just fun to play. Now, luckily for us, a lot of anti-white games haven't been that fun. Like, they've had a lot of really bad reviews. But that might change. We can't rely on that being the case forever. Oh my God, another bulk detonator? Well, at least it wasn't during a thing. Woo. This is why I did what I could, you know, when Height Mat Defender came out. So if you know Height Mat Defender, it's made by Cult Games from Austria. And they are on our side, right? When that came out, and then it got banned off of Steam, and it got put on the sort of German blacklist of media. You know, Krogan streamed about it, I streamed about it. They've done cool things like a Dev Jam like making
And moving dirt is the best way to make a living.
making well, dev jam, it's sort of you get together and you program stuff and whatever, making games, right? Sort of like it's a race to make a really simple, fast game, as fun as possible, blah blah blah. And you know, I've supported that and I've tweeted about it and I've encouraged other people to participate if they're into programming. But we really need more of that, which means we need some of our young, more intelligent guys who are into programming to be willing to put some time into that, and also our guys give some dollars to that. And this is one of those things where, gosh, it'd be nice to talk about it openly, but at the same time, if you're any sort of content creator and you start talking about money, you know, people are always going to be skeptical, right? And that's not entirely unreasonable, right? We've all seen the Twitch streamers, like, admonishing her audience for not giving her a bunch of money or whatever. But, like, for someone like me, I notice, for example, that there are a lot of people who will talk a lot of big words about how much they support our people and they love us and they want this and that and the other thing. And while they'll pay $100 or $200 a year or whatever for a Netflix subscription, while they'll pay, you know, $1,000 going out to eat fast food over the course of a month or two or a year or whatever, they, like, you ask them, like, okay, well, you ever seen American Renaissance, Jared Taylor? They'll be like, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, Jared Taylor's great. Well, you spent hundreds of dollars giving money to Netflix. Have you ever given Jared Taylor $5? Oh no, I'm not giving money for that. We got a problem here. You know, even some of our most serious hardcore guys who really believe in the messaging of some influencer creator like Jared Taylor, the idea of giving them $5 is still like, oh, that's too far. No, not giving Taylor $5. And this is where I'd like to Rogan, I think, has some ideas on this and talking about this, and it would be good to talk to him about this. There are other ethnic groups in the world, right, who do finance things that they consider in their own ethnic interest, right? When, like, they get their paycheck, they have a sort of culture of tithing. Like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure and write out a little check, it doesn't have to be big, to, oh, I got a big pay, or I got a bonus. I'm going to make sure and write out a little check to this sort of interest group that protects my people and the stuff I want. And there's, like, a lot of groups of people who do this. And we don't. And part of the reason we're so badly losing is because we don't. Now, some of the people who don't give any money to anything would tell you, well, we don't have those types of organizations yet. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's just an excuse. I mean, I don't know. BDare? Amran? Some guy you think has a really great message? Anybody? I mean, out of all these people, you couldn't even find one? Kinda sounds like an excuse. But, jeez, taking a lot more damage here than figured. I wish I could get these health bars one on top of the other instead of side by side. It's harder to tell. Okay, just start healing up. Both of you guys. Okay, so they're gonna go heal up because I got them too far distant in health, which will give me time to grab this. Okay, where is it? Oh, they're healing again. Reload this. Okay, they're there. Healing. Okay, that's the lacerator. Where's the arbalist? There it is. Oh my god, they're going in again. Whoa! Up! Up! And I could just burst this down? Oh, thank god.
Here comes trouble.
Now I think this last one, like, enrages and does a bunch of special stuff. But he's in the cavern below me. I'll read comments after I finish this dreadnought. Just trying to get through stage 2 of the deep dive here. I have plenty of nitro. I can just go to the next one. Where the heck is this guy? He's still underneath. He can't figure out how to find me. Is he burrowing up through the floor? Come on. Ugh, I don't know if I want to go into that hallway with him. Gee whiz, Dreadnought Armalist. Oh!
Blow it up, Bosco.
Yeah, Bosco. Rocket it. Oh, shit.
Dreadnought wiped
Woo.
out. Good work,
Oh,
team.
whoop, whoop,
Objective
whoop.
completed.
Oh. Whoo.
All objectives done. Press the button on the mule when you're ready, and we'll send the drop pod back in.
Okay, so let's look at some of the comments here. Mr. Gladius says, I doubt any one of our guys spends money on Netflix. Only soft right-wingers do that. I've heard some of our guys...
Feel much better now.
I'm pretty sure they have Netflix. I'm telling you. Dodo says, reject Netflix. Get Streamio and watch every show for free. I can't tell you about Streamio. I've never used it. And certainly encouraged no one to do anything illegal if that is the case. But yes, definitely reject Netflix.
Don't die for me.
Sark says, I wonder if the difficulty in transferring money while staying anonymous is part of it. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure some people are very concerned about what might happen if somebody went to their work and said, like, oh, this guy's giving money to Amran, Jared Taylor. I mean, did you see his Wikipedia article? Guy's evil, you know. I'm sure that's a thing. Wait, how do I go? How do I leave? I guess I leave through here. Oh, God. Oh, do I go up here? I mean, I think that's a thing.
Drop-pod arrived. Mule is returning to
I don't know how big a thing, but it's a
Drop-pod
thing.
departing in T-minus 5 minutes.
Nero says, I think one of the problems with media creation is that at least currently we are too on the nose. A great game that showed a positive image to our father, white communities, family, etc. Oh, that's with games and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, how like coded or like indirect do you have to be before they're finally okay with it? Where am I dropping? Ando says he's cheap across the board, to be honest. That's fine, you know. I would never encourage anyone to be spend their money inappropriately. But the point I'm making is about like revealed preference, right? Someone will say like their people really, really matters to them a lot. And they'll spend in 2022 they'll spend 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 on media, entertainment, fast food, and they'll give zero to anybody. They'll give zero to Jared Taylor. They'll give zero to all these other things that they would tell you are good, right? They would say like, oh yeah, Jared Taylor, he's great. American Renaissance, he's great. Well, if you give $3,000 to Burger King and zero to Jared Taylor, it's a revealed sort of preference. It reveals something about your real priorities, regardless of what you said. Vando says he avoids paying for entertainment as much as he can, and I totally get that. I agree. All right. Piers says he's never paid for Netflix. There you go. I agree. I think that's good. No, I mean, it would be good to, in terms of if we had video games, talking about the video game thing, because I see some of you talking about video games and being on the nose. I mean, yeah, I don't think you have to be, like, super on the nose, but, you know, we should have games with good messaging, right? I think we all agree on that. There should be some games with some good, healthy messaging in them, and we're really in a position where we don't, and there's some of our guys who are into programming who didn't participate in, like, the Cult Games Programming Video Game Jam, and they may have even known about it, and they decided not to participate. Or, you know, they liked the Cult Games Height Mat Defender game and some of its messaging, and regardless of how on the nose it was or wasn't, I mean, they still didn't give it any money.
Third and final
So, I mean,
the drill team. Stay focused, work together.
we can say, like, well, if we had this kind of game, it would be better, but people won't fund it. Then we're going to be in a rough spot either way. And that's where it comes into the culture of tithing. Again, there are other ethnic groups, when they get their paycheck, or they get a little bonus, they go out and they write a little check to that little organization, whatever, you know, or organizations, blah, blah, blah. They see a chance for them to fund sort of the ethnic struggle, and they do. And you could say, like, some of the people we have in the organizations or whatever aren't as good as you want, but I guarantee you a lot of those other ethnic groups also feel that about their groups, right? There's someone writing out a check to there's a Somali writing out a check to a Somali sort of interest group, and it's not that he believes that the interest group is getting it all right. He might genuinely be, like, mad at the leadership of the interest group for failing to deliver on some deliverable, right? Some problem that he doesn't see eye to eye with them on, and yet he still writes the check. So that kind of, and we don't have that culture. Kind of a problem. Now, of course, as someone pointed out, if someone goes to your work and says that you give to a Somali interest group, you don't get fired. Right? So there's that. Right? I get it.
Oh man, this ain't what I saw.
Average Joe.
Hostiles are backing
It's
down.
Height Mat Defender. Height Mat is German for homeland, I believe. Yeah, there you go. People wrote in the chat. H-E-I-M-A-T. Height Mat. So, as far as the game jam goes, this was a while ago. They might be doing another one at some point. I don't know. You'd have to talk to the guy, Roland, I think it is. So, KVLT Games, Cult Games, right? Guy who runs it's from Austria, and they did a game jam. So, like, they have those sorts of things in programming. You know, they'll all get together and they'll try and program little things. In this case, video games, really short video games. I think they had like 7 or 8 like video games get made in a weekend or something as part of their game jam. KNAT says, to be clear, the games can be very forward about being white, family, or tradition or positive, but focusing on other groups might... Oh, but avoiding stuff about other groups would be a good idea. I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, not only does that make the games more palatable to some degree, I think that's where the important messaging is. Like, at the end of the day,
The mule right here, right now.
I'm never going to be as negative about other groups as I am positive about my own people. You understand? Like, I'm not here to say them bad. I'm here to say us good. That's what I'm about. That's what I want our stuff to be about. That's what I want your life to be about. I don't want your life to be filled with, like, negative emotions towards some outside group. I want you to be able to focus on you and your family and your people and make good things happen. Not to be mired in aggression or distaste for someone else. Very interesting. Got the nitro right here in the thing. Krogan did an interview with the Hype Mat Defender creator on Odyssey. Yes, he did. And I think he talked to him a couple times, and I was on there for one of them, I think. Ooh. Gladius says, Europeans had the worst combo ever in rapid succession. 2 world wars, and then decades of too much prosperity that made us weak. I mean, I think it's going to take a long time for us to even fully quantify and qualify the effects of those world wars. I mean, from a genetic standpoint, a large portion of the breeding population died, and that proportion of the dead breeding population was not a fully, like, random sample. There were certain qualities among that population that may be more or less amongst the total population, such that it represents an evolutionary event. Like, we'll never be the same. In some sense, right? So, very bad. No more brother wars, that's for sure. Inexcusable.
Donkey, come here.
Swarm's heading your way. Load up.
No, not a swarm. Get over here, you stupid thing.
Barley carries mineral, and we
Hey-ya!
have drugs in mind.
Got him.
Your life in a nutshell.
Alright. Man, this is a mini mule map too. I hate the mini mules. God. Where's my gun? Oh, it's over here. I might come down then.
Platforms placed.
I hear a grabber. There he is.
Focus fire here.
KNAT says, agreed, but other groups should be criticized when they're being anti-white. Yes. That's very true. They have to be. That being said, I'd say that, like, that's the main thing that needs to be criticized about them. So, like, for example, if anti-whiteism grows within a certain community, oh, the Vietnamese are being super anti-white, like, they can't be above criticizing. But at the end of the day, what's really sort of the problem is not that they're Vietnamese. It's that they're being anti-white, right? And I talked about this when I was on No White Guilt's stream, you know. If someone believes not that anti-whites are the problem, but believes that a particular ethne is the problem, like, for example, South Africa. Like, a guy in South Africa, if he were to believe that, like,
You're almost through the
blacks
left, team. Go,
are a
go.
problem instead of anti-whites, right? Well, if he moves out of there and he moves to a place where there's no black people, he'll put his guard down and he'll assume he's fine. And he'll send his kids to school and not be concerned that they're hearing bad things. But they certainly might be. Because he failed to see that it was us against anti-whites and not us against any particular ethne. What I think we're going to see is over the years, some groups will grow or diminish in their anti-whiteism. And so far as they grow in their anti-whiteism, that's bad. When those groups diminish in their anti-whiteism, that's good. And some people will say, well, I think some groups will always have some amount of anti-whiteism, which is probably true. Like, there'll be some groups who will always be somewhat negative about us or whatever, and I don't think anti-whiteism will ever go away,
Mine it.
right? But at the end of the day, part, I think, of our message, and what I want my message to be, is at least every child is born innocent, right?
Platforms place.
Do ethnic conflicts exist? Blah, blah, blah. Yes, of course they do. But no matter who you were born as, I think you at least deserve a chance, you know? As terrible as anti-white as your ancestors may have been, like, here's your opportunity. Prove to everybody that you can be white positive. Prove to everyone that you like people. I want people whose ancestors may have engaged in anti-whiteism to try and prove how much they like us, right? Imagine that. Imagine, like, there's a group of people who have a lot of anti-whiteism in their history,
Fire.
and their kids prove, like, their kids, there's a culture where they prove that they're not anti-white. That's what I want. Prove it. Let's see here. Here it says my relatives in Lithuania didn't have too much prosperity, and that was reply to the thing where someone was saying that the combination of 2 world wars and excess prosperity really did a number on our people. Yeah, I mean, certainly white people have been through a lot, and still continue to do so at times. Oh my god, you guys, get out of here. There's more legs around here, isn't there? What's that?
Go fetch.
Get that mule leg, Bosco.
Platform up.
Whoops. I missed some of the chat here, so... Oh my god. These flies are back.
Skull crusher.
I see that Dodo is talking about Disco Elysium. Oh my goodness.
Plasma buster. I need you here.
Well, so... Dodo says... the Measurehead
Sticky goo.
was portrayed as more reasonable than the racist lorry driver in Disco Elysium. And that's just the name of the guy, right? They just call him racist lorry driver. That's his character's name. They portray Measurehead as more intelligent, more reasonable, more attractive, more everything, right? Than the racist lorry driver. And that's because he's white, right? There you go. I mean, they're both portrayed as bad in some way, but certainly the white guy is out of shape and less sophisticated, less intelligent, and kind of just bad. Gladius says, Embargo, you're a very interesting guy. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Oh my gosh. So many chat messages. Also, this is the last stage of the deep dive. And I'm going to call the stream after this. It's been a couple hours. Just need to get out of here. Unengineer. So, I switched someone who was asking about my builds and whatever, and if I look at build guides. This is actually my first time, recently. Recently I started using... God, how am I gonna get out of here? What the heck? Okay. Can I dig through the wall here real quick? Maybe? Oh god, it takes 3 hits. Okay, is this where I want to be? Yeah. Get through here. I've almost always used the 2 guns, the 2 turrets on Engineer, but I recently started using the 1 turret, and I don't know, I've just been trying things, and again, I feel like even when you're on Has 5, and now this isn't Has 5, but I'm also not focused. Even when you're on Has 5, it's not, like, that hard. I mean, it's... If the team's rough... Yeah. But, I mean, if you're doing it solo, you can kind of go in with anything... Anything-ish. I don't know. I talked a little bit about why I build certain things in my last stream. Like, why I... Like, the only thing I ever use on my Engineer is the shotgun. 1, I like shotguns. 2, just don't like... I don't know. These other guns just don't compare to the shotguns, in my mind. I know a couple of you guys, Ando and KNat, you mentioned left wing versus right wing. Is that spectrum useful, correct, all of this type? I want to make a video about that at some point. Or just talk about it on stream. But I'd want to create some visual aids to talk about it, right? Because the idea of left wing and right wing and horseshoe theory and this and that, like, those words and ideas really pervade people's thinking in ways that I think is sometimes helpful and sometimes very not helpful. And I think if you really break it down and try and understand it better, I think if people in general would do that, some of our conversations would become a lot more productive. Arthur Byron's Unfinished Victory. I don't know that. I don't know that. KNat says, have you seen what the latest EVE Online event is based on? No, I have not. I haven't looked at EVE Online in a while. I've played a lot of EVE Online. I really enjoyed exploration and probes. Probes are way easier than they used to be. You launch all 8 at once. I mean, you didn't even used to have 8. Or at least, like you would train up astrometric... Damn it. You'd train up a skill just to launch more probes. Kira says, it seems to me that anti-white whites are our biggest problem. Anti-white whites versus anti-white non-white, right? Like, which is a bigger problem? You know, like, on some level, I feel like I don't need to solve that, right? Like, which is the bigger problem? Like, that question. I feel like I might not need to solve that question because they're both really big problems, and it's sort of just like, if you push back on anti-whiteism, you're solving both problems. Or at least you're attempting to, right? Ryan Falk's distinction of Kazi people versus non-Kazi people. Yeah, I don't know about that whole thing. I mean, here we are talking about a cause. I mean, are you saying we're leftists? I mean, a lot of us here are here because of our common cause has driven us to hang out together and talk about these issues. Okay. Well, I gotta go. I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta get off stream. Been streaming for a couple hours.
Rock and stone!
Coming up on next Wednesday. So at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be going back and doing more Deus Ex, Human Revolution. That game is interesting so far. We haven't gotten a lot of story, but we should be getting more. I'll be interested in looking at what it shows about transhumanism and whatever. One of the only things I've seen so far in the game that it really sort of struck me is like, we started with a scientist right in the very first scene. She was a successful woman, probably in her 30s or whatever. She was a real powerhouse, real genius, and like all the men around her were very sort of grovelly to her. Of course, there was another lady in charge who man walked into her and dropped some boxes, and she admonished that man of being worth less than the boxes. So there was a very sort of interesting female empowerment sort of thing going on. Or maybe even just egalitarianism. But Adam Jensen, in the story at the end of the first real mission, a second mission, he accused the hostage taker for being a bad guy for taking a female hostage. You're hiding behind a skirt, he said. So on one level, we're getting the game saying, hey, female empowerment, women are running stuff, and, they'll talk down to men. But at the same time, we have these sort of traditional men are there to protect women, men who threaten women are bad men. So, like, which is it? Is it that the world has sort of turned into that, but Adam Jensen has a more traditional mind? Or is it just that we want to maintain, is it that the game creators want to maintain both of those paradigms at the same time, where men and women are equal and one can boss around the other, but at the same time, men still have to defer to women and keep them safe and protect them? Like, what are we coming up with? I'll be interested to see what the game presents in terms of messaging about that. We'll probably see more coming up next week, or they'll maybe get more heavy into the transhumanism thing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Deus Ex Human Revolution, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you all have a good day. Have a good week, or a good weekend. And I'll see you next Wednesday. Peace out, everybody.